Hey everybody, and welcome back. Right, we're going to press on with the frame today. Nothing much to report. Hopefully it's going to be a less hectic week than last week. I'm not going to be out here sort of Saturday afternoons dashing on to get something done for the video. But as I say, we're going to do the frame, so we'll start off putting the bearings on the headstock, and then we will do the box section thing for the swinging arm bearings, so you'll see all that. Lots of comments, and actually we're still going up. We're nearly 8,500 people now. One comment was that vice would drive me crackers. Well, actually it drove me crackers as well, so I welded it together. I've virtually never used the swivel, and actually I have another vice with a swivel on it. But I got so pissed off the other day when I was using it, I just grabbed the welder and welded it up. So what are we going to do today on the frame? Well, let's say we're going to put the bearing carriers on, and this is, I've made the first one. I sort of like to make one as an experiment, you know. I could just film making it, and if it's alright I've got the film, and if it isn't then I have to try something else. But I like to get stuck in. That one's got the outer race of the taper roller bearing already in it, and that is just going to go onto there, get pressed on, and another one for the bottom, and then that's that done. What I also did, actually, because I kept looking at it, was I put a curve in these. So didn't like the look of it being straight, and when I looked at Charlie's bikes, they're all curved like that, so it looks much nicer. Alright, anything else to report? Not really. Woke up yesterday morning, looked out the window, and everything was white. Fortunately it was only a little bit, and it warmed up and it's gone again. So let's get stuck in on the lathe, and I'll show you how we're going to make one of those things to carry the bearing. So we're starting off with that thick walled piece of tubing that I showed you. The ID being 1 3/4, so that will go over the headstock. We're going to use 1 inch of it. First thing I'm going to do is we're going to bore it to fit. Where is it? I put it down. What have I done with it? Oh Lord above. Anyway, oh, there it is. Hold on a second. We're not going to switch it off just for this. Right. We're going to bore it to fit that in. So this is 1.850 OD, which is what we're going to bore this to, and we're going to bore it down just over 450, because this is 450. I'm going to give it maybe 455, 460, that's all, just a little bit, so that the rubber part of the bearing will just seal into that. Then we're going to cut this off at 1 inch. We're going to take this wall down, the wall thickness, I can't remember where it is, but we're going to take it down to about 1/8 inch. Maybe just over, I can't remember, I'll have to look to see what the other one was. I'm doing it the same thickness as the headstock on the B25, because if they don't fall apart, then this one won't fall apart. So what I've got is, I've just touched this off at the face here, and I've got my magnetic, what's his face, you know what I mean, dial indicator on the ways, so that as I move along I can take it to be exactly 460, which is I think what I'll take it to. Alright, so as usual I'll show you a start, and then I'll come back when I'm finished. This always throws me off a bit, because you're sort of going backwards. You're not winding it in, you're going to negative numbers if you start at 0. Now don't worry if this looks a little off, because don't forget we're going to bore the inside and we're going to turn the outside, so it's going to be completely concentric. Right, let's put this on forward, and away we go. We can go a bit faster than that. and we'll take a bit of a deeper cut. So where am I going? I'm going backwards. Actually, I think what that was an edge. There we are, that looks better. And we'll go up a speed. That's 1, 200, 300, 400. Last little bit by hand. 460. Okay, that hasn't touched all the way around, so come back a bit more. Set that to 0, and this is going to be the point from which we'll measure it. So that's touching the edge, that's on 0 there. That looks better. 100, 200, 300, 400, and 60. That'll do. Right. Hold on a second. Alright, I've got what I need now. Put our telescoping gauge in there. Very good. .763. So let me do a little bit of maths and start turning this down, and we'll come back when I've got it to the right size. Right then, I've taken this to 1849. Yeah, that's going to be a nice tight fit. Jolly good. Okay, so now I'm going to turn this down to whatever the other one is, and then part it off at 1 inch, because I just measured the depth of this as well, and it's showing just under that. It actually came out at 462, so I'm happy with that. So let me turn this down and then we'll part it off. Right, we want this to be 2130. I'm only going to do it with calipers because this isn't a very critical measurement. 2130, 2223. 2220. Yeah, 2223. So 2130, that's just under 100. So let's take 90 off and then I'll check it again. So 90, that's going to be 45. Take that off in one cut. a nice sharp tool, but it's not, it hasn't got a chip breaker on it. So we just got to keep an eye on it. Thought it was going alright there. Right, so we're looking for 2 130. Two 136. That'll do, because I'm going to dress it up a little bit with a file and take that out and put, I've done that now. Well, I'm going to put a chamfer tool, there it is. A little chamfer tool in. I did the inside. There we go. So I'll clean this up a bit and then we'll put the cut-off tool in. Right, we'll cut this off. I'm going to run it really slow because when I did the first one, I don't know what grade steel this is, but it shuddered a bit and I don't know what that was, so we'll make sure everything's locked down tight. I think it is, and I just checked before I started that this is dead parallel with that, but we shall see what we shall see. I've got a very slow feed rate as well for the cross slab. I mean, I've got a big solid lathe and everything and a very expensive cut-off tool that I was given, but this really is slow. But oh, here we go. Still don't like it. These people I watch on YouTube that just set this going and whip the cut-off tool in. I don't know. Cooking nicely now, man. Maybe last time I wasn't completely at right angles to it. I've just checked the tool height as well. See? I don't know what this is with this. As I say, perhaps it's this particular grade of steel. What is this? Let's cut the groove a little wider. See, this is all your fault, Steam Shop. I wasn't going to show all this machining. You could edit it out, but maybe it does need a little more speed. So put in the comments about this. With this modern type of cut-off tool, do I need more speed, more feed rate? You know, am I being too nervous with it? That's about through. What was all that about? This is the only piece of steel I've had any problem with. Alright, let's switch you off. So there's the two of them made with the outer race pressed in. As you can see, there's just a little lip, so that'll... Where is it? Hold on. So here's a bearing. That just goes in there. Nicely, see? Seals it up. Perfect. We have to have a little piece to go in there for the top yoke to fit on, because the bottom yoke is fine. It's got a little raised portion to go up against that, but the other yoke hasn't. Alright, so there's a couple of little things to do. Now one, actually I can show you it on this. When I put, see, that's going to go in the 1 3/4 tube. Are you alright there? Whoops. The 1 3/4 tube is literally going to be, because it's a 1/16 of an inch, right to the edge of this, so you won't be able to knock them out. The B25 had, it's almost like a big washer which sticks out a little bit underneath this. I don't really have enough room for that, or where the two tubes go at the headstock is going to be really cramped. So what I'm going to do is out of here I'm going to cut, because these are going to go down, well, they're going to go down to there. I'm going to cut a little notch out on either side, so that when you put something in from the other end to knock it out, it'll go into that little notch and catch on the thing. Alright, so let me just get the grinder out and notch them. So there's the two notches, and I've also chamfered them down that way, so you should be able to get a long punch in and knock the bearings out. So let me do the other side and then we'll pop those carriers on. So there we go. There's the two of them pushed on. What I'm going to do now is just put a tack of bronze on either side, and then we'll go and we'll put the bearings in and put it up on the forks in the jig and see that we've got everything right, and then I'll bronze them in fully. I'll just tack these on so that I can check everything out first. That on there. I made a little piece to go in there, and that goes on there like that. That goes on there like thus. Very nice. Right, where's my, oh, there it is, excuse me. So let's see what we've got here. I'm not going to keep moving you around, you just have to take my word for it. Right, that's actually reading 24.15. That's reading 0. So we're right like that. You get round here. That's a centre. And that's reading 0 there. So miraculously I've kept everything square. So I've had a sort of change of order of doing stuff, because I was standing here and it suddenly struck me, I've got the head on so I could put the exhausts on. So before we do this back end, which puts a big box on here and makes this difficult to lay down and stuff, I'm going to mark and drill and put the sleeves in here, and we'll make up engine plates, and then we'll put the exhaust in. And I've done a few measurements. I've grabbed a bit of tyre actually to put in there to see how much space we had for things. I still don't think, well, with those exhausts we're not going to be able to get them in inside, so it's not Otter, but I'm going to do in 1.5 inch tube. That I've got a die for, so I'm going to put a bend in it like that to come down here, so the exhaust will go on the outside. So let's get ourselves, let me set the engine up so it's in exactly the right spot and it's level and everything, and then we can mark this tube and take it off and drill it. Because of course, if you go on Charlie's site, he's made this nice little fixture, which is sort of a piece of tube with 2 flats on it, so it goes, when it's laid down, goes flat on the bench, and it's on the centre line and got the 2 holes there to drill. But we will put this into the mill vise, and then I can put the level on this and make sure we're exactly flat, and then we'll drill it. Before I start getting everything set up, I'm going to show you a new little piece I made for the jig. it's this thing here. Now this is a 1 3/4 inch U-bolt, so this will clamp on here, but I've made that slotted so that I can use smaller U-bolts and give myself some play there. So the idea is this goes on here like so. I'll just do it up loosely so I can show you. I bet that's a... What's wrong with that nut? No, it's coarse thread, same as that. Why won't it go in there? Huh, it has that way. Alright. Then what we do is slide them up. Let's say this all get lined up, tightened up. That'll clamp to there. And when it's all tightened up, that'll hold that exactly where I want it. Then we can mark it for the mounting plates. Actually, I forgot the engine came with some mounting plates, so I can play around with them a little bit. So anyway, let me make sure everything's vertical and horizontal and all the rest of it. Sorry about that, couldn't see what I was talking about. There's the engine plates. They came with the engine. And actually I was noticing that the casting's different on the other side, and the two engine plates are different to fit. Nice and easy on this side, but it's got to go round a piece there. So as I said in the video, let me get this all straight. I've got this all clamped up now. It's vertical this way, vertical that way, everything's right. I checked everything's still in line. The engine's horizontal, but actually it doesn't really matter about the engine now I think about it. But I wanted to show you a sort of little trick. I showed this once before. It only works under certain circumstances, but it's very handy. I need to find the centre of this, right, so that I know how far away from there. Now this is 1 3/4 and the top tube is 1 3/4 as well. So I've put some, it's just felt tip pen on. Let me show you, let me just move you around slightly, because what we're going to do is we're going to get a straight edge, because they're the same diameter. So a straight edge across here will just be touching the very outside of that, the highest point. So if we get it down here, touch that and scrape, that's the centre line. Okay, so I can do that now, a bit higher as well for that, because these plates will work. So what I'm going to do is, just to save a little bit of time, I'm going to use these plates, and then later on I might make up some alloy ones, although to be honest, if I drilled a hole in the middle of that, probably wouldn't save that much weight. Alright, so let me do that, mark it, then you see what we'll do is we'll set a line across there and mark it as well, and then I can measure up the exact amount centre to centre from that, and then as I say we'll go over to the mill. So let me get this marked and put in the mill. So here it is in the mill vise. See, that one's reading 0 there, and then I've got a long parallel spanning the two tubes, and it's level across there. Alright, so I'm going to put a jack under here just to be on the safe side, although I don't think I'll need it because we're drilling right over here in the vise. I'll move it over. I've got one bottom hole marked, so I'll spot drill it, and then we'll zero the DRO and I'll wind it across the right length for those hole centres. I did my spot drill, and I've drilled a pilot hole 5/16 because these are 5/16 mountings, so it gives me a chance to put that through. My God, it's actually in the right place, look. Right, now then, what we're going to do of course is we're going to sleeve these with a sleeve that will have a 5/16 hole in the centre of it, an ID of 5/16, but it's going to be, I guess, what? We need a good 1/8. Should be a quarter and 5/16 is 9/16, 10/16, let's say 5/8. I'll check to make sure, but I'm thinking of 5/8. So let me get a 5/8 drill out and then I'll drill through. If you're wondering, I've got a piece of wood underneath so that when the drill goes through it doesn't hit the vise. And there we've got our 2 holes drilled. The block's just there to stop this falling off the table. And here's some 5/8 rod which I was given. They're actually, see, they're threaded there and there's little holes in. I have a friend, he was a customer originally, and every time he comes he brings me something. Sometimes it's just an ice cream, but every now and again he'd made these at his machinist job and then they were surplus, so it's nice steel and it's 5/8. So perfect fit. So all I'm going to do now, oops, because I don't even have to turn these because they're the right size, cut it off, 2 and 15/16 I think it is, and then drill it 5/16, make 2 of them. So I have a couple of these rods and another one. Don't think that's long enough, but I've about 3 of these full length ones. Anyway, so that's grand. So that's the next thing we'll do, onto the lathe with this. Now this rear engine mounting is 3 inches wide, so that's what I made these. These are 3 inches, so they're ready to go into there to be those 2 things. Now, I'd assumed that this was about centered. There's the center line there. I scored it actually with a pair of calipers off this face. Now I've just put a pencil line in so you can see it a bit better. So that is there, and it turns out that is not quite the center. Instead of being 1.5 inches from here, it's 1 5/8 inches from here. Now, as I was working the chain line on that center line, I'm going to keep the engine centered. So the tube that these are going to go through is 1 3/4. So half of that is 7/8. From the center of that tube to there is 7/8, and from there to there is 3/4. So I don't know if these numbers will, if this will show up. See, that's just on 1 5/8, and that's just on 3/4. So what we're going to do is we're going to set these up so this sticks out from the seat pillar by 3/4 of an inch on this right hand side. So let's go and do that. I'm just holding this in the vise, it's sort of that way, so this is the right hand side here. So I'll put a little scribe mark on there, and what I'm going to do is put these in. And to keep them exactly together, same length and everything, while I at least tack it, I'm going to put the engine plates on. There's one. Okay. And that one. Right. See, that keeps them completely flush both sides, so I don't have the danger of one being through more than the other. Don't have to be done up tight, although I will get a spanner I think and just make sure they can't come. Then I can push that out till it comes to the mark, and I can also measure from there to the plate, and I know that I'm going to be 3/4. So while that's set up like that, I'm now going to just tack these with a little bit of bronze, then I'll take the plates off and I'll bronze them in. So there's our rear engine mounting plates on. As I say, later on I might make some alloy ones, slightly different shape. But they're on, everything's still vertical. Vertical that way. Engine's in horizontal. We've got the headstock bearings in. So everything is right up there. So let me show you something else. Right, well, I've just deleted a whole load of video because I was talking about and working on the exhaust as I went along, and I've just looked at it and I scrapped it all because it can all be condensed into a couple of minutes. Alright, so the main crux is I wanted to put the exhaust on to see which way I wanted the front down tube to go, etc. And surprise, surprise, the exhausts don't fit. Now, the reason I spent a whole afternoon on this, first of all, it took me forever just to get them to fit onto the stubs that stick out. But then I couldn't get it to go together. And when I did finally literally force it to go on, I found that the tube that goes in here wasn't in there straight, and you couldn't get the chain case on. So what I've done is I've put this on this side with a clamp, clamped it up. I know I can get the chain case on all right, but I'll show you what is wrong with this exhaust. Now the exhaust stubs are splayed out at an angle to each other. And the way to get this wide piece to work is that this should be basically at the same angle as the stub on the other side, so that as I put that stub on, it should go into there. But if I put that in there, although you can't see it, it's miles out over here. But if I put that on there, as I say, this should slide into there. Can you see that? I'm hoping the camera angle will show it. Yeah. It's completely wrong. Either that should have been more, this should have been more that way, or the bends in this should have been different. But as you can see, there's no way that would push on. And because they're at angles, you know, they sort of won't go on together. I'm assuming that the way they go together is that that and that should match up as you slide it on. But anyway, they don't. So I spent ages. I got some bends out. I thought about making it. Hold on a second. This is 1.5 inches, which is what I always use. I was thinking of taking the stubs out and making a new one. See, I could have just put a short piece on there to fit in, put some springs on to hold it. I could have made it much tighter and everything. I even thought about making two, because the wide piece is the awkward bit, and having them go in behind the engine and making a silencer box for in there. But I knew from the start I was going to have to cut this because it's the road going one. So, you know, it bends out to go around the back mudguard and all that sort of stuff. Actually, looking at it, it still wouldn't fit. It points in towards the back wheel. But I knew I'd be going to cut it in here to tuck it in. What I'm actually going to do is cut it here, and then, you can't quite see there, there's an outward kink. So I'm going to cut it, shorten it, turn it round so that it's an inward kink, right? So I thought to myself, okay, what am I going to do here? Well, as I say, I was already planning to cut it once, plus pointless trying to sell it to somebody because it doesn't fit. You know, if I sold it, they'd just phone me up and say, oi, it doesn't fit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this as well. Get that tube to fit into that tube. We'll do it all on the bike. So because I'm going to use this exhaust, that definitely means, as you can see here, I can't put a tube on the outside of it. We're going to go on the inside. So let's have a look at that. No, you can't see that. This is what I was showing you a minute ago. I can't have a straight tube on the outside. We'd come down here and, you know, the wheel would have about 1 inch of movement. So we're going to swan it. We're going to come out of there. What I'm going to do is come down straight inside there and then one bend to make it vertical, to slide in between there, and then we'll put the plates on. So let's have a little look at that. Just realised I've forgotten to do something, which I can do. I'll use the cutting disc. But you may remember I mentioned I was going to cut this there and sleeve it so that when I got to this stage I could just take it off, because it's held, the engine's held at the back and it's held underneath, and oh, you can't see them, but I got loads of clamps down here holding this so the engine can't move. Or that little bit of movement you saw there was actually the jig. So what are we going to do? Right, well, I'll cut that off. So I'll use a cutting wheel and then I won't be joggling it about. And it just so happens that I've got the front engine mounting plates. So what I'm going to do when that is gone is I'm going to put, these are different for the two sides. Hang on. The cases are a slightly different contour on the two sides, so the two plates don't match. So I'm going to put a plate on. Actually, I think it'll go on, yeah, one will go on both sides, the other one will only go on one side. I'm going to put this on so I have a flat side. So if you can imagine, just for showing, that will be on there and I will bolt it on. Now these are only, I think it's 2 1/4 inches, and like the back they're slightly offset. So we're going to put that on, bolt it on. Make 2 of these. I might make, no, 2, yeah. You know, the Triumph, as you can see, has only got 1 front mounting, and I think Ian Ballard's, I think, has 2, and I don't like the idea of 1. I never like a mounting that can swivel, so we're going to have 2. So we'll bolt that on there. We'll cut our 2 pieces exactly the same as we did at the back, of 5/8, because these are 5/16 bolts. And we'll get our piece of 1.5 inch tube. And in a minute I'm going to measure the angle I want here. Then we'll get our piece of 1.5 inch tube. We'll bend it so that we can offer it up, make it longer as usual, offer it up so we can see that it comes down, goes straight down there. Then I'll drill the tube and put these mountings in. Right? That'll be bolted on there. I'll just use a big clamp to hold the tube on while we weld it here. What we'll do is we'll make it up and I'll offer it up at the side. Now this is 1.75 inches and this is going to be 1.5 inches. So the actual cope is going to be very small. So for this I'm actually going to do it by hand. So what we'll do is, as I say, it's going to be vertical, about that long, and then about here it'll bend and go up. So when it's bent, say it's bent like that, we're going to offer it up and I'll just mark it and then cut that at the appropriate angle, and then a little bit of file work and just fit it, and then when it'll fit we'll clamp it into there and that'll hold it nicely for me to tack it, and then we can bronze it. Alright, is that all clear? Now I'm not sure how much I'll get done because I've got to make these little pieces, I've got to do the bend and all sorts of stuff. So we'll see what we shall see. Alright, I've got a piece of tube. That's where it's going to be for the engine mounts. So it's going to be vertical down there. Then, as I said, just up here, because the exhaust comes around here, we can, from about here, and let's see where the exhaust does come. Hold on a second. Right, now you can see the exhaust crosses over there. This is 1.25 inch tube, so I've got a good 1/2 inch there, and I'm clear everywhere else. It's only going to come down to about here. So we'll be fine there. So we're going to make it bend about here, right? Oh, just as an aside, I ordered spare parts from my list. $600 and odd for the engine parts. And don't forget I get a discount. Hang on, I'm not going to be able to do this with that on, so let me just mark. I like to start bending about there. So, make sure we're zeroed. So this, we say that's the... So it's not going to be much of a bend, actually. See, that's the inside of the bend. It's about it. And that is 151 degrees, which means it's 39 degrees from there. So I'm actually going to make a 39 degree bend, because that's what that would be. Alright, so let me cut the bottom off this thing and get some bits made. I'm back because I forgot this thing was magnetical. So there you go. See, that'll come down nicely onto there. So that's the angle I want it to be. Yeah, alright. 151 from 180 is 29, not 39. I just found that out. Of course, found it out after I bent the tube. Little bit of good fortune there. This tube just slides onto the piece of box section that the engine thing's made out of. Okay, so if we take that to past it, zero, as you can see, we're just nicely where we want it to be. Alright, now I've got to go and turn a couple of the pieces that go through the tube. I've left this long actually for a couple of reasons. One, it was easier to do than to try and judge it, but secondly, this gives me more when I put it in the vise on the mill to make sure it's horizontal for when I drill these holes. So let me go and make the cross pieces. So I've bolted an engine plate on, I've got theirs done and these done. They go in there like that. Bit of a burr on the other side. Whoops. So I'm just doing a bit of wood to get my angle right up there. I'm going to cut it off about here and then we'll make an engine plate that goes over there. But I'm running late. We're actually going out for dinner tonight. It'll be the first time in over 12 months. So I've got to go and get washed. So I'm afraid that's all for this week. We'll finish that off next week and start on the swinging arm box. Alright? So, off you go. Stay safe and enjoy yourselves.